Birds of Prey finally coming out this weekend. It's time to dive in and re-rank the whole entire DCEU, or World of DC. Yes, I know I have in the title DCEU. That's just for the algorithm stuff on YouTube. You guys can't just crap on me in the comments like last time. I have to address it. But guys, thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. If you guys are new here, consider hitting that like and subscribe button where I do tons of rankings, reactions, and early movie reviews over here on a daily basis. And of course, guys, make sure to comment down below and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this. What is your ranking of the DCEU so far? Let's discuss it. Down at my number 8, it's really no surprise, it's Suicide Squad. And here's the thing, when it comes to this lineup of movies, I can totally get many people not liking these. And when people were telling me, hey, I don't really like this movie, I kind of understand. But for the same perspective, I also have to say this, and you guys have to understand that this is my full opinion. This is my opinion of this ranking list, no matter what you're going to think. I like a majority of these DCEU films. Really, the only problem I have with the structure of it all is, yeah, that word structure. There's no, what are they doing? When they announce a sequel or they announce a film, I never know if it's actually going to truly happen, and it's hard for me to get excited about. And really, I don't get excited about it until I actually see set footage of them filming it, because that's when I believe that it's actually happening. So, understand that. But again, my number 8 is Suicide Squad, and for me, Suicide Squad, whew. I walked out of this movie very conflicted. It was definitely not the movie I wanted it to be at all, and I felt like a lot was left on the table. And I thought a lot of passion. I felt like there was passion in it, but I felt like the coherentness of it and the rushness of to get this movie out there was felt, and you feel it in the movie. Are there fun elements to it? Absolutely. Can you enjoy it for what it is? I guess. But when it comes down to an incoherent story, and truly the biggest thing that baffles me, and I try to never have a con against this with a movie, is kind of story decisions, but there's one big story decision here that I'm just like, that's the dumbest thing ever. Why wouldn't you have the Joker be the main villain? It baffles me that they did not have him be the main villain. It feels like that should have been the main thing you should have had in here when building up your DCEU, and it didn't happen. They had Enchantress, and Enchantress is whatever. You throw her away, she's fine, it's whatever, nothing against her. And in fact, the biggest thing that's great about Suicide Squad is the character interactions. In fact, I liked every single one of the characters. I liked Katana, and it makes me sad that we're not going to be seeing her in the next one. I liked Rick Flag, and yes, he is going to be in the next one, but I'm going to say this. I guarantee half that cast from the original one is dead in the first few seconds of this one. I think Rick Flag's dead. I think Captain Boomerang's dead. I think Deadshot's not going to be in it, obviously, because we know Will Smith isn't on set. Maybe he shows up for a cameo. I doubt it. And then you even look at Harley Quinn. We know they're not going to kill her off. But when it comes to the other characters that are coming back, I have to really think that they're going to kill them off very early on, and maybe even some of the other new side characters that they add in. But I wouldn't be surprised in that part. But I did like all those characters. I liked Deadshot. I thought he was a big surprise in here, and I love what Will Smith was able to bring to the character. I love Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn in this movie, and again, the character interactions, those developments with them were the strongest things about this movie. It just comes down to a very incoherent plot that just feels like it's honestly quite a music video at times, and even the action set pieces weren't really the best at times. It just feels like a bunch of people walking around a deserted city with these weird mushed up monsters from Power Rangers fighting them off, and it's never a movie that I care to ever revisit. Coming down at my number 7 is the movie that actually gave me a glimmer of hope for what the DCEU could be, and that is Justice League. While yes, it does feel like very much of a mess, and I'm still praying, release the Snyder Cut. I still think that this movie's... I really do think that we're going to get the Snyder Cut within a year and a half, maybe 2 years, maybe even down the road. But I really do think a year and a half to 2 years, we're going to get the Snyder Cut eventually. And I think it's inevitable. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do. And I think actually Warner Brothers might be worried that there might be some backlash against them, because I feel like a lot of us are going to really like the Snyder Cut. And really when it comes down to Snyder himself, anytime he has an extended edition of something, it's way better than the original edition. Maybe that's him as a filmmaker needing to learn to maybe tighten the scripts a little bit, but still, I think they work for him in how he's able to really do a full format. I'm actually curious to see him do a full miniseries. I think that would be awesome for him to do kind of a comic book film or an adaptation, or maybe one of his own stories inside a miniseries, because I think he could actually really work and have all that time to really justified and really digest all the characters. But Justice League, we know all the mess, but for the film that it is it a mess again? Has that incoherent story. It has many baffling elements to it that I'm just like, especially on rewatches, you start to notice them more and more, and it just goes back to say this was not planned. This feels totally rushed getting to this scenario. And while yes, we're finally getting to see Aquaman, yes, we finally get to see the Flash, and yes, we finally get to see them all team up together. And yeah, those team-up elements are good. Some of the fight scenes are great. And in fact, even though the CGI is quite terrible at times, the thing that I loved about this movie is what Henry Cavill brought to the Superman role. This is the first time where I feel like he actually embodied Superman. I think the last two films that he portrayed Superman in, he was Superman, but I don't think him as a character saw himself there yet. And I think Justice League was where he finally embodied the Christopher Reeves Superman that I've been wanting him to dive into so far. Again, there are some fun elements to be had in Justice League. I wouldn't say this is a complete mess. I think there are some hopeful glimmers in there, but in the end of the day, when you look at it, it just feels like a hodgepodge mess, and it just feels like, hey, we're trying to get our Avengers out there. It's not working, though. Maybe the next time. And I do think we will get a rebooted version of this Justice League team down the road, and I'm excited to see it when it comes out. And coming up, my number 6, again, this is my full opinion, so don't crap on me in the comments, but it's Wonder Woman. And really, anything above 6 and up, I absolutely kind of love to even really like. And again, I pretty much love all these movies kind of moving up into this forward category, and that's Wonder Woman. I loved Wonder Woman, and I will say, though, on rewatches, though, this is one of the movies that I don't care to kind of rewatch more and more. I feel like the more that I've seen it, the less I kind of start to like it, and that doesn't go anything against the movie. I think my one issue with it is everything after No Man's Land kind of just feels very anticlimactic. Yes, the last battle with Ares is actually quite great, and the emotional gravitas to what is going on with Steve Trevor towards that ending thing. Now I'm curious of what they're going to do with 1984, obviously, since Steve Trevor is back. But besides that, the first 2 acts of this film are almost near perfect. And then when you get to that third act, it doesn't like totally go bad. It just feels like it's completely kind of going back to that typical comic book realm that we get. And every time I watch the movie, I really love to watch the first 2 acts. And then when it gets to the third act, I'm kind of like, because I do love this movie. I love what Patty Jenkins' direction is. I love Gal Gadot, but it's just one of those movies that it's hard for me to go back and rewatch. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that, but I can rewatch multiple scenes throughout here, and I think it is a very inspiring and empowering movie, and I love what Gal Gadot was able to bring to Wonder Woman, and I'm really excited to see what they do in 1984. I'm actually in the camp that I think 1984 is going to be such a blast. It might even be the best DCEU film yet. Coming up, my number 5 is Aquaman. Now, I will say this. I do not think Aquaman is the best made film in the DCEU. In fact, I think Wonder Woman is still a better movie. But when it comes down to rewatchability and my personal preference, I would rewatch Aquaman at least once a week if I got the chance. And I don't know what it is about Aquaman. It's freaking Lord of the Rings mixed with Star Wars under the water. And James Wan's vision and direction in here was everything I could have ever wanted from an Aquaman movie. Some of the action set pieces in here are some of the best that we've ever had in a comic book sequence. And in fact, I'll say that about a lot of these DCU films. They have some excellent, great set pieces that really stand out. And Aquaman is one of those. While yes, Aquaman is a little bit too long. Yes, the trailer showed a lot, but the thing about it is a ton of fun. It feels like pretty much a live action anime, and I love how James Wan was able to capture that. Again, capture the mythology, capture this world, and really bring it to life. Aquaman's one of the ones that really sticks out to me the most in those categories. And again, not everyone's going to agree with me with that. A lot of people kind of see this on the underside of it, but for me, I just love rewatching Aquaman, and there's so much fun to be had in it, and Jason Momoa just nails the role, and this is easily his best performance to date. And coming up at number 4 is going to be Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition. Now, if I were to include the normal edition in here, this would probably be a little bit lower, but I love the Ultimate Edition. I think it actually fixes the main issue that I had with the original version, is the incoherent plot that just doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. This Ultimate Edition really solidified what Zack Snyder was going for, and I actually loved his vision for this, because this isn't your typical comic book versus movie. This is a straight up drama that deals with the catastrophic events that happened in Man of Steel, and I love how they were able to really dive into all those elements and truly take them on, because a lot of people had issues with them, and the way that they were able to bring it about, especially seeing Bruce Wayne and Batman's perspective, was great. Ben Affleck is still, and I will contend this, that he is the best Batman Superman and best Bruce Wayne that we've ever had. And I would really say this. I think a lot more people would be on my camp with this if the movies were better. Well, I think the movies are good. But in general, if more people had loved the movies just as much as I did, because I think the performance he gives as Bruce Wayne is incredible, and I think him as Batman is fantastic. Their action set piece is great, and whatever. You take out the Martha stuff, I'll still kind of defend it. On paper, I can understand what they were going for. In the moment, it is a little bit cheesy, and there are cheesy moments throughout Batman v Superman, but it's still an event film that really worked for me in the most part. And in general, when it comes down to this Ultimate Edition, I love it and what they were able to do with Superman and Batman and showing two different ideologies. And coming up at number 3 is the brand new release Birds of Prey. I loved Birds of Prey. In fact, I had such a blast with this movie. It was really one of the ones that quite surprised me, because the first trailer, when they announced this movie in general, I wasn't that excited about it. Then I saw the first trailer and I was like, got a little bit hyped. Saw the second trailer and absolutely fell in love, and it became one of my most anticipated movies for this year, for the bar none alone that I know it was going to be different, and I love what they were going to be able to do. It has Tarantino elements to it. It has Deadpool elements, but I don't think it's fair enough to kind of say, hey, it's like those two movies, because it really much is its own thing. It is a big bundle of joy and fun, and that is what I love seeing this movie. I can't wait till I own this movie so I can just constantly rewatch it, kind of like the first Deadpool that I love to do. Margot Robbie nails it as Harley Quinn, and what Kathy Yame was able to bring to this movie with her direction was quite subtle, but also fantastic, and her really inside look into the breakup of her and the Joker was one of the strongest things. And I think actually as a performance in a superhero movie, Margot Robbie has a lot to do with Harley Quinn. While yes, she nails the voice, the performances, the movements, and everything that you would get from Harley Quinn, the one thing that she really nailed for me though was the emotion and the entertaining values of being Harley Quinn, because Harley Quinn's a very bundle of different elements that could really add into one another, and it could come off annoying or it could come off a little bit too sad, but it comes off perfectly to where it's very entertaining, but you also very much feel for her. And the Birds of Prey in general are great. I loved seeing all of them, and I can't wait to see more of them. And again, I go back to the structure of the DCU. I need to know what's happening with this franchise. I need to know when I'm going to be able to see these characters again, because I don't want this to just be a one-off. I want more of all of them. And I just loved it all, and it really opens up a lot of different avenues for what could come later down in the DCEU. Coming up at number 2 is Shazam! That was one of my most anticipated movies for that year, and some of it might be a little bit of a biased thing because I love Zachary Levi, and when he was casted as Shazam, if you've been following me since then, I did a little bit of a live stream and almost cried, freaked out, and really almost pissed my pants of excitement because I loved his show Chuck. I loved him as Flynn Rider, and in general, I've been following this guy ever since he was on Chuck, and just wanting him to get that big breakout role, and I think Shazam was the big one finally. He was perfect casting, and I think this is one of those great origin stories that truly, this is what I'm going to come out and say. It's been such a long time since I got the same feelings that I got when I first saw the first Raimi Spider-Man movie. And really when I saw that as a kid, that really changed my life. And Shazam kind of did the same thing. It gave me the wonder and joy and magical elements that movie gave me of seeing a superhero on the screen for the very first time. That was my first superhero movie I'd ever seen, was the first Spider-Man. And it changed a lot of me. And I loved it. And Shazam was able to bring me that same feeling. And I don't know how David Evan Sandberg did it, but he did. And while I will still say Shazam is a little bit too long, I think there's around 15 to 20 minutes that you could have cut out, and maybe it would have kind of dove into kind of the villain not really getting a lot of development, but I do think the villain does slow it down a little bit. It's not because he's a horrible villain. He is a good villain. I just didn't really care for his backstory. In fact, in all those flashbacks of him younger, I truly did not care about it all. I do understand how it was setting up inside the story, but Shazam is just a big bundle of fun, and kind of going back to the Harley Quinn, it's a ton of fun. It put a big smile on my face, and it's one of those ones that every single time I rewatch it, it gets better and better. And I'll even go as far to say, back to Birds of Prey, the more I watch that movie, I have a feeling it's going to itch up a little bit higher on this list, maybe even eventually beating Shazam. But let's get to my number 1. Of course, coming in at my number 1 is Man of Steel. This is the movie that really, probably around 5-6 years ago when I first seen the movie, I felt a little bit disappointed in it. But the more that I see the movie, the more I just truly, overall, fall in love with the movie. There's so many things to this film that is just great. And it's the first movie, like the first Superman movie that I ever said, flip, I love Superman. He's such an intriguing hero, and this is the one that Zack Snyder was able to take this character and really formulate it into modern times, because I think Warner Brothers doesn't know what to do with the Superman character when Zack Snyder already did it, and I think people weren't expecting that, and they got a more brooding Superman, but he was still coming into his own, and I feel like after Justice League, you just gave Henry Cavill one more movie, he would be able to really bring about the Superman that everyone knows and loves, while at the same time edging into those little edgy kind of brooding moments that he had in Man of Steel. Because what I look at this is Superman is pretty much the Captain America for the DCEU, and Captain America, never the biggest fan of him until Winter Soldier, and I feel like Man of Steel kind of gave that same nuance that Winter Soldier gave to Captain America. I love Man of Steel all to death. I think it is truly the best Superman film to date. I actually think it's one of the best comic book films ever to date, and it's just truly one that really stuck out to me the most. I love the last action set piece. I also think Michael Shannon is incredible as General Zod, and overall, I just love Man of Steel. And that's my DCEU ranking, guys. Make sure to comment down below and let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Did you guys enjoy this video? Did you not? Let's discuss it down below, guys. Thank you guys again so much for watching this, and I can't wait to read your guys' ranking down below. So, guys, of course, until next time, stay classy.